Welcome to the ABCs of Horses, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring Christy Wood, a world champion horse trainer, a carded horse show judge, an equestrian expert, and an author. Welcome, everybody. You know, you are listening to the ABCs of Horses with Christy Wood, and I'm Lisa. And usually we tackle a letter of the alphabet. Last month it was foals, fillies, and colts. Well, today we're going to take a little detour because Christy just came home from her epic trail ride that she does every year. It is the Chief Joseph Trail Ride. It's put on by the Appaloosa Horse Foundation, and is it a foundation or a breeders organization? You've got to get me straight on that. I'm always like, it's the Appaloosa dudes. But she's going to tell us about the trail ride because this is a progressive 13-year trail ride following in the footsteps of Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce when they were outrunning the cavalry, the U.S. cavalry. So it's very historic. It's part of our national parks and public lands, national forests. And so it goes up through the Pacific Northwest and the West. And she does this every year, does one piece of the trail with other riders. So it is a 13-year progressive trail, and she is on her second run, I should say, of this trail. And what's neat about it is she wrote a book about it. So everyone's going to go get it. Her latest book is out now. And it covers the Chief Joseph Trail Ride, which I think is pretty epic what she does. So go get it. It's called Hoof Prints Across Time, a trail ride to remember. Again, by Christy Wood. You can go to her website to get it, wdnhorse.com. So welcome back home, Christy.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's nice to be home, except I do miss my Nez Perce and Appaloosa family. I go there every year as almost like a family reunion. The riders, we are so connected. So just to help you understand, it is the Appaloosa Horse Club.
That's it. Thank you.
Club that is in Moscow, Idaho. They are the sponsors of the ride, and it's been going on since 1965. And you were correct. It does take 13 years to complete the ride, with us riding 100 miles every year to follow the 1,300-mile trail from beginning to end. And it is a progressive ride. And it's also, we ride the National Historic Nez Perce Trail. And it was given that designation in 1986. It became a National Historic Trail. So it's just an awesome, awesome ride. And
yeah,
it was just wonderful.
Where did you go on this route, like this portion of the route? Where did you start and where did you end?
So if people do get my book or already have the book and want to follow along, the book is not by chapters, it's by years, because that will help you understand each year and which leg of the ride that we do each year. So this was year 6, and year 6 is the ride that rides into the Big Hole battlefield. Now, there are 8 battles along the way of those 1,300 miles in the 3.5 months that the Nez Perce actually did this trail in real life. And they had 8 battles where the Nez Perce won 6 out of the 8. And unfortunately, this was one that was very devastating. 90 Nez Perce lost their lives, and it was just a tragedy. And I can take you through the ride, and we'll talk about the closing ceremony at the end of this if you like. But it's It's just something to recognize. So we started in actually Darby, Montana this year. And Darby, Montana, for those of you that like to follow the Yellowstone, I guess, series on TV with Kevin Costner, they're filming.
And Ryan Bingham, by the way. We got to give a shout out to the musician, Ryan Bingham, since he was on our show and we think he's hot.
Oh, great.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
He's
right. Well,
one of my favorite musicians. So
I'm just saying that because it's off of Highway 93, and we actually had to drive by there, and the security is very, very tight. You can't get even close. If you sneeze, they're going to wonder what's wrong with you. So anyway, so we started in Darby, Montana, and of course, when we start our rides, thank goodness we are blessed to have a camp crew that goes out and talks to the Forest Service, the fire service in the area, and private landowners, because we're looking for places that we can camp 80 riders, which means we're going to have at least 60 horse trailers, if not more, there, plus the camp crew with all of their rigs. And so we feel a pretty good wheat field or somebody's pasture in order to camp. So we have an assembly camp where we start the ride. And then, of course, the ride is a progressive ride. It moves camp every night. So everything is packed up when the riders ride out at 8 o'clock in the morning. The drivers get in the rigs and they move the rigs to the next camp. And the next camp is going to be the same thing, possibly Forest Service. Make sure we're not in the way of any fire service that could be up, doing protection of the lands, and private owners again. We have so many generous private landowners that allow us to come onto their property and camp.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it's quite a spectacle. If you look at my book, and actually there's, the Appaloosa Horse Club will post some pictures. If you're a member of the Appaloosa Horse Club, you'll see pictures in the journal. We have a Facebook page called the Chief Joseph Trail Riders that you can certainly join and follow along with all the wonderful pictures that are posted after the ride. And then it's a great source of information if you would like to consider this ride, plus the postings from everybody of someone might be looking for horses to lease or be looking for a driver to move their rig. So this is where we all connect, usually is on this Facebook page. But the Appaloosa Horse Club, it's appaloosa.com. has a section just for trail rides, and they have a section just for the Chief Joseph Trail Ride. The application will be there, the information on how to get yourself ready, your horse ready, what you need to bring, and it's very, very thorough. Plus my book. My book is really a great eye opener for anybody that's considering this or has never heard about it. It will really give you an idea of how you can come along and enjoy this. You may not want to be on a horse. Some seniors may not really physically want to ride 5 days, but you can come and camp with us and enjoy the evening speakers, and we have music, and we have wonderful chefs that cook for us, and just meeting the people is just an amazing experience.
I think that's really cool because this is true living history. When you think about what you're doing. We've covered the trail ride with you for years now. And in fact, everyone, we have a page about it up on nationalparktraveling.com that links to a video that we've done at one point. We didn't film it. It was just a nice slideshow video kind of thing. And also as a playlist of podcasts that we have done over the years on the Chief Joseph Trail. So that will be linked in the episode notes. So you can see that, and also Christy's book. So you can follow along with this. But this is living history, and what it's living history, it's then and now, because it is really celebrating the past, the present right now. When you're in the present on the horse, you have to always be present. As Christy always says, you've got to be focused and present, especially on a trail ride like this. But you're also looking at the future because you're also connecting with the indigenous people of these regions that you're riding through, not just the farmers and the ranchers and the locals who are kind and saying, hey, yes, let's do this, but also the actual indigenous people that, the Nez Perce, you actually get to connect with them, and for that unity to happen when there was no unity of that nature back then. Which I think is pretty big. We have
descendants. Yes, and we have descendants of Chief Joseph that ride with us. We have a lot of Nez Perce that ride with us. It's a ride of healing for them. They have to go through this every 13 years they join us. And matter of fact, one of our head scouts is a Nez Perce young lady named Lucy Samuels, who's very good at what she does. And she brings the history of her family to us and shares that with us. We have guest speakers from the National Park Service. Landowners, oh my gosh, the landowners who will come and speak and tell us that their great-great-grandfather actually met Chief Joseph when he passed their land, and how peaceful they were, and they just wanted to be left alone, and they wanted to flee the cavalry who was trying to force them onto much smaller reservation and into basically a compound. I don't even want to call it a reservation, a compound,
right?
And not allowing them to hunt and live like they had over the 10,000 acres that they used to, live on. It's a hard change. Change is just tough. When you live in the country, then all of a sudden someone puts up a 3-story hotel next to you. You're going, what in the heck has happened? So, we constantly infringe. I guess maybe that's progress for a lot of people. But it was just, there was a lot of things, a lot of mistakes that were made. And truly the Nez Perce were a peaceful Indian tribe. They want to be left alone. They didn't want to have a conflict. And they really had no choice. They had to leave. There were just a lot of misunderstanding and rage from the cavalry side as well as the Nez Perce side, because some Nez Perce were killed, and it just the volunteers that came to help the cavalry wanted to actually get back at the Native Americans, protect their lands, number one, but then also to retaliate. So it was just And in several instances, someone shot a gun that shouldn't have shot because they weren't given the order to shoot. And that's what starts the whole massacre. It's just really very sad. But
Wow.
we don't want to forget. And that's why we live this history. We don't want to forget, so we can at least make the effort to be kinder to each other and not repeat this again with anybody in the modern world.
I think that's huge, Christy. And to
Yes.
write it, you're tracing the footsteps of history and, going at a slower pace and, trying to escape the cavalry, right? But you're in it. So you're really immersed in this history and it's got to be emotional because I always find that like when I go to a
Yeah.
battlefield, my
Mm-hmm.
body gets weird. Like I don't know if I'm just overly sensitive, but I like going to Gettysburg. Like I had
Oh,
to go sit
yes.
down. I had to go sit
Yes.
down because I was
Yes.
too, and I saw the way people walked over monuments and stuff. I was like, what do you do? There's a
Well,
respect. You know what I
unfortunately,
mean?
every generation just seems to lack the interest of history. I see that more and more, and I hope it's not 100% true that some generations will want to look back at the past and look back at the history, and maybe they go only as far as World War II, and not go any further to the 1870s. But there's just it's quite a story, and yes, when you're on this trail, you can feel that if you're tuned in to God and Mother Earth and your Wayakan spirit that of these
Mm.
Native Americans that were there. I'm sure they're almost grateful that we're doing this to keep them alive, their memory alive, and what they endured, and to be on this trail. I'm on a horseback, and yes, I'm going to have a trailer, a comfortable trailer and a shower at the end of the day with, in the back of showering basically in the back of my horse trailer. But I have more comforts than the Nez Perce ever had. And for them to endure this with family and children and seniors and their 2,000 horses and, waking up every day and trying to have hope to find the way to Canada to find sanctuary. You just have that hope every day. And even though we know the outcome, that wakes you up and you have a new day. And the dawn is
Mm.
there, and you just hope for the best. And it's just amazing, this trail. It was very difficult this year. We started out, I think the first camp was at 3,100 feet. And one of our trail guides simply said, well, we asked what we're going to do today. He says, well, you're going to go up and then you're going to go down. And that was it. He really forgot to say that up is going to be switchbacks at almost 45 to 50 degree angle straight up to where your horse is going to stop probably every 10 feet to catch their breath because it's such a hard climb. But our Appaloosa horses are just amazing. And of course, I've got a good program to get my horses ready for this. And that's an important factor too in being prepared for it. But it's to have people carrying their supplies and pulling everything they own on their backs or on the horses packing some of them. It's just a very difficult thing. And you just have to go back and think about what they endured for this.
Yeah, it's their life, and it's a flight for their life, a
Right.
flight
Yes, it
and a
was.
fight,
It
right?
is. Yes.
So when you
Yes.
went to the battlefield, I mean, are there signs there? Is there interpretation?
Oh, yes. There's an interpretive center there. You can't miss it. It's called the Big Hole Battlefield Interpretive Center. It's near the little town of Wisdom. Honestly, I can't remember to tell you the highway that it's off. I'm not sure if that's 20. I can't remember it, but it's off the 93. So it's actually between the 93 and 15, Highway 15. And it is in Montana. So it's really due east of Darby, Montana, off of 93. And you can get to the Big Hole Battlefield. They have wonderful docents that will tell you the stories. You get to walk both the battlefield, and the battlefield is sort of stretched out. The battlefield encompasses where the Indians had formed their camp, and the teepees are still there. They're very visible to where they had camped alongside the river, thinking that they were secure and that nobody was going to be chasing them, because one of the spiritual leaders of the tribe had a dream and an vision that they were not being chased anymore, which is very, very sad. But then the cavalry found them. The telegraph always is probably one of the main reasons that they didn't succeed is because of the telegraphing ahead saying, hey, we spotted them here, we spotted them there. They could send troops in from the east instead of from the west. But the cavalry came up upon them at the Big Hole camp that they had early in the morning. And again, their orders were to retrieve and capture the Nez Perce and bring them back to the Wallowa Valley to put them on the reservation. And I'm not sure, I honestly can't say right now which general gave the order or which captain gave the order. But I think one of the generals who was actually in charge of chasing them wasn't present at that time. And the other person in charge said it might be just easier instead of trying to bring them all back. Why don't we just try to kill as many as we can?
Oh,
so on the early morning hours, I think actually the anniversary is August 9th or 10th, but I don't know for sure. But that's why we had the ride later this year, was to actually be part of riding in and camping and coming across the street and being a part of the ceremony. That's why the ride was a week later. But the orders from the cavalry were to shoot low into the teepees at dawn because everybody would be sleeping. And that's the best way that their bullets would be the most effective in killing as many Nez Perce as they could. So that's what happened. And,
oh my God.
And
I'm sorry. That's insane.
It's tragic. And I'm being honest about this, and it is in the book and it's at the interpretive center. I mean, I'm not making any of this up. This is history. And they thought that the Native Americans always thought that if there was a battle, they were told, their chiefs and their braves told them, you run for the water to cover yourself, get into the reeds, always run to the river, run to the water for cover and for safety. Unfortunately, the cavalry had come up above the area where they had camped that night, and they were on a ridge looking straight down, perfect line of sight for them to shoot into the bottom of the teepees. And when they awoke, realizing there was a lot of commotion and what was happening, the Nez Perce ran right to the water, and that's where the cavalry was also stationed. So it was just a real total tragedy, except that the Nez Perce fought back and actually pushed the cavalry back into a siege area, they call it. And you can walk this. There are paths and there are Dolsons that tell you what's happened. And there's markers that show you the dig outs the cavalry dug into the ground to, make it for more protection for them so they wouldn't all be shot. They'd have a place to hide behind the mounds of dirt and digging in deep to the earth. And the Indians were able to, push them back at least. And 37 cavalrymen died there as well. But then the Nez Perce lost 90 of their people. Just a total tragedy, the whole thing. So we rode for 4 days this year, with the last day being joining the ceremony of the Big Hole battle. And we had the Nez Perce tribe came out, had some wonderful speakers that talked. They did their ceremonial drumming, smoking of the peace pipe. They honored each other within their tribe or things that people have been doing. One of the elders stood up and said, after this ceremony, we would like only Nez Perce to stay because we have discovered more graves of our Nez Perce and more things have been revealed of how tragic that battle really was. And that's all I'm going to say right now. They gave us a tiny tidbit of what was happening, but we respected all that. We all left, and only the Nez Perce, they wanted to take their family members to these grave sites because they needed to see, again, the aftermath and what happened in history.
Well, and I totally respect that. And I think that's so important because, right now, there's wars over Native American remains between museums and the Native American peoples, like their ancestors. They're like, oh, it needs to be in a museum. Oh, well, the museum says they can take care of it better than their people. And we're talking Smithsonian level stuff.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, Florida is one of the regions, and it's
I think we have an abundance of items in museums now for us to see history.
We do not need, you can look at a picture.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Get over it.
Yeah, the individual tribes need to address that. And collectively, they can decide if they want to release some items for posterity, meaning for history, so people can learn. If we have enough of those items to them, if it's so emotional that it ties them to their family, then it's their decision not to release those. Those are the bones of their forefathers. Just like Chief Joseph said, he never wanted to sell his property because his dad was buried there in the Wallowa Valley.
Right.
His father was buried there.
And that's where we were
land.
We were there that winter, this past winter, and that area. Joseph said, I got goosebumps like you couldn't believe, like massive goosebumps as we talk. Just that you don't mess with ancestral places. We did a lot on the Dakota Access Pipeline, and I'm not getting political. I rarely do, but I did on this because it was the indigenous people's water rights. And they're going and land rights. And they're like, oh, we can put this pipeline. It doesn't. And it was actually ruining ranchers' land. Yeah. I mean, it was hitting, and I'm not going right or wrong here, but we've taken enough. And here they were thinking, oh, well, it's under the water, so it doesn't matter. And they're like, excuse me. And we interviewed, Cody Hall, the Red Warrior camp, and came on our show. And we weren't supposed to even do a podcast. It was back when we were doing live shows, which you've been on many. And no one covered this. And we were one of the first. No one, I mean, all the big news channels ignored it. It was like Labor Day weekend, right? One journalist, Amy from Democracy Now! Went, and she got arrested. The person we interviewed got arrested.
Oh, goodness.
And no, it was terrible what they were doing. And so some of the pregnant Native American ladies went and tied themselves to the chained themselves to the tractors that were destroying their ancestral burial grounds, their ancestors' land. So they went there, and our National Guard turned dogs on them like we did back in the day. Turned dogs on pregnant women. And so I was like, oh, heck yeah, we can do a live show right now. We'll, turn it on. Let's get it. And that is our president at the time did nothing. Our major news channels did nothing. It was up to all the independents. And I don't even know how they found us. Like, they were just like, hey, you're obviously cover land and Native American history and nature. And I think we've done so many shows on, the indigenous people's history and respect for that, out of respect, not out of woo-woo, we're an Indian thing. And what happened there was disgusting. And
how would you like to turn the tables? How would you like to turn the tables in your local town? You have a graveyard. How would you feel if someone came up and dug up your family? I mean, it's the same. It's not any different. But
to turn dogs on pregnant women?
Well, yeah, that's not right. So
we got rid of that. I thought, but this is so fresh history. This is now still happening. So when you're riding the Chief Joseph Trail, so I get goosebumps. I get all upset about it all the time. I'm sorry. But the Chief Joseph Trail, it's not that long ago. And if we could go all the way to now, the Dakota Access Pipeline, which was not that long ago, we're talking 5, 6, 7 years ago, max. I have to go look in the records. If you look at that, we're not acting any different. If we can set dogs on pregnant Native American women trying to protect their ancestral burial sites. Oh gosh, I can't. I got goosebumps everywhere, Christy. I don't know how you do this trail ride. I'd be so upset all the time. I'd be so like, but you know that you're doing the right thing, right? You know that you're interpreting this in a beautiful way with your books and, podcast, and, you have so much, true dignity and, respect, healthy respect. And I mean healthy respect. The Native Americans have been, it's kind of the same thing as people put just the Americana items of Native American people. Like, you know what I mean? That's the symbol of the West, this wonky kind of stuff to sell. they're not trinkets. These are people of the land. They were the first people.
Right.
They were here
Right.
before us whiteys got here,
Right.
and we did bad things. So I feel like
Well,
we
the
have to just,
more people need to get out and walk that trail, even if you do a portion of it. There's some wonderful markers that the Forest Service and the National Park Service has put up that you can read. You can stop along Highway 93 and see that. You can see the Lewis and Clark Trail that really pretty much overlaps the Nez Perce Trail a lot. And you're up on the Continental Divide. If people really like to hike, get yourself up there. It's accessible, but you've got to be able to do some serious walking and climbing and be prepared to endure it. You're not going to drive by and see a Starbucks, and you're not going to see it all and not understand it all from the road, even with the signs. I mean, they do have, historical landmarks, which is wonderful, but you need to get out there and put your foot on that same dirt, that same trail. You've got to do that. You really want to understand it.
I agree. Whew. I mean, do you feel heavy when you're riding? I know I've asked you this before over the years, and I'm going to ask you again. It's heavy history that you're riding through, but also some of the most spectacular scenery that the country has. And
Yes.
you're on horseback, right? So there's the trail riding, and you have to be prepared with your horse. And we need to touch on that. Getting your horses ready for this kind of event, even having them trailered and getting there. And then, hey, this is something new. And you've also have a different horse that you've been riding the last few ones, right? And do the horses feel the history, do you think? And I know I've asked you this, but I have to bring it up. Do they feel it? Because I walk dogs a lot as we travel. And there's certain things like I think animals know. They sniff everything, right? You know that you're a dog person too. Animals smell everything. And I wonder, I would like to do a study of how far back their scent can go.
Well, I can answer that. I can
weird.
answer that with a couple of chapters. Chapter 9 in my book talks about seriously riding into Yellowstone and how my horse reacted to a grizzly bear. That's all I'm going to say. So you folks have to buy the book, go read chapter 9 and find out about a grizzly bear.
Sales pitch right there. Yes.
And then riding into Yellowstone and having Dollar, my mare that I rode the first 1,300 miles on the fourth rotation of this ride, how she perceived a bison for the very first time. Unbelievable how she studied a bison. Now, most horses don't stop and study any animal that looks bizarre or strange that they've never seen before. A horse just as soon turn around and run from danger or something they don't understand. That's how they stayed alive for billions of years. They don't analyze. Horses don't have brains to analyze. They have a flee to flight or flight for survival. And we rode up on top of a mountain up there in West Yellowstone, and that's in the book as well, about Dollar perceiving for the first time, seeing 500 bison standing in front of her. And she was so calm and so intent, picking up their scent and just watching them. And of course, I'm probably putting my own human emotions into her, but I know my horse well enough that she was cued into them, watching them without any fear, and almost had an understanding of them, which never comes from a horse that hasn't seen anything before a first time. They're going to leave. I'm out of here. I don't even want to find out what that is. I just want to leave. And she studied them. It was just amazing. And in my head, my human thoughts, I was processing what her thoughts were. And I put this in the book that I felt that she truly felt that maybe her ancestors saw these bison 150 years ago, and they carried the Nez Perce, who were their beloved humans that developed this breed and shared their lives with them. And she understood that. She said, that's something that we're going to engage. And I'm going to carry my Native American friend. I may carry Christy in closer to these bison, but this is something that we need to go experience, explore, and be a part of. It was so interesting that she had no fear. That's the best way to explain it.
Well, I will take it a step further and say we still haven't discovered everything about the horse. What we know now is what we know now, right?
Right.
And what if she's able to know what you're doing in her mind? Like she knows you, right? And maybe on the trail, because she's been on the trail with you, she was smelling bison beforehand going, oh, I know that. So it comes, and she was already anticipating because the scent could be fresher. It could be not. It could be like she smelled it before. And,
I'm not quite sure where she would have smelled that before, except maybe in the approach, but she'd never been near before, ever in her whole life. I've never taken her near.
That's amazing. Like there's so much more to learn about animals, and it's about having a patience with it too. I mean,
Yes.
I love to see, I mean, how animals react to things, how they watch, just watching how animals smell things to me tells you, oh, there's something there. Our stupid human eye doesn't even pick up. We go, that's a blade of grass.
Yeah, their sight is different than ours. There's just, you have to take all that into consideration when a horse reacts, and then how they're wired to react. They're wired to react to save their life. That's where the trust and the training comes in with the human. So we could be a partner in that, in either agreeing that, yes, maybe we both need to leave, or let's just stay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And that's where the trust comes in and the bond comes in. So I took a wonderful friend this year with me. Her name is Stephanie. And she rode another one of my buckskin geldings. And it was her first time. It was the geldings' first time. And they actually did a beautiful job together. She thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish she could have been here today to talk to you. Hopefully we'll get her on an episode later on so you can hear her first year impression of this ride, because it's always good to see how people perceive things for the first time. But they had a beautiful ride, and we really truly got our horses and ourselves prepared. She was here at 6 o'clock in the morning prior to this ride to ride out, because we were having extreme heat here in California, and couldn't even ride past 11 o'clock in the morning. The heat was just too intense. And in the evenings, the heat would last past 6 or 7. So it only gives me another hour and a half, pushing 2 hours of daylight to get my horses ready. But, so we were very limited in our time to get our horses ready, but I do have a wonderful route in Three Rivers of mountains and water and foothills. And, I got my 10 miles in just about every other day on my horse to get them fit. My horses were fit. They handled the ride beautifully, as difficult as it was. Stephanie and I did just fine. The only problem I had was when I wasn't riding in camp, when you're up at 6,100 feet elevation, and even higher. And I really felt that in my lungs. I had a hard time with my breath, but riding my horse, it was fine. But my horses were in great shape and condition. And, it was just a wonderful, wonderful week. But getting back to the ceremony at the very end, our camp was across the street from the interpretive center. There at the big old battlefield. And, we had several Nez Perce that came and did the empty saddle ceremony for us. Several chiefs rode, several ladies rode, and they ponied a horse with an empty saddle 3 times around the circle of the ceremony. And then the Nez Perce talked. And I tell you what, it still grabs you. It grabs me now.
No, it's deep. It's deep. And
I cried literally for 2.5 hours. As a matter of fact, my eyes were so dry after that. I didn't have any moisture left in my body. And it's just emotional. And it's, and we've lost a few Native American friends over the last couple of years. And it was tough to be there without them as well. And just the newcomers. And it's just, a lot of reverence and, a lot of honor and gratefulness that they allowed us to be a part of that.
And they bring their youth in too, right? I remember that from past conversations.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, and this is so interesting. I mean, Chief Joseph, everyone, one link I will put in the episode notes as well is to Christy's very first podcast on the ABCs. We did one that we introduced the show, and then the A was for Appaloosa Horse. So I'm going to link that so you can hear about Chief Joseph and how he created the Appaloosa horse breed, right? Because that's a huge part of it. So I got goosebumps again. What's going on? Whew, girl, what are you doing? I mean, this is like, every time we talk about the Chief Joseph, it's heavy and light at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. It's light in that we're talking about it and getting people aware, and, but it's just heavy history, and we cannot shelve our heavy history. We cannot do it. I mean, the other day we had to take someone's comment off a YouTube channel because there was a place that, was a plantation that had slavery and all of that. And they talked about how change happened. it was a tour that we took and videoed.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, they need to tear it down and tear this down. And I'm like, dude, look how you're talking. That's hateful. You know,
Yeah.
bye bye. Don't do that
History,
on our
history,
podcast. Don't,
history needs to remain so we can learn from it. But
yes. And
you
they
can't turn your
talk
back on it
about it.
and you can't erase it from history. You need to still see, unfortunately, the
Yes.
slavery, but you also see how far we've come and
And the
how
National Park Service
slavery was.
they do a good job of interpreting,
Yeah. Yes. You've got to learn from this. You learn from the statues, and that's just part of that's how we got better. Hopefully we got better is because we stopped all of that.
Well, we need to all
Yeah.
get along a little bit better, I think, at this
Right.
point.
The biggest
But
word is kindness. We need to show more kindness to each other
and
and respect for history.
actively find common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Actively find the common ground, not the negative stuff, not the what we don't agree on.
Right.
Focus on the common good. That term, the common good. Let's go
That's
for
what's
that.
enjoyable about this ride is I'm riding with people that love the Appaloosa. They love the history. They love the Nez Perce. They love the land. They love Mother Nature. They love what God has given us. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this. And that's what brings these people together on this pilgrimage every year. I'm on my 19th, just finished my 19th consecutive year.
Wow.
Next year, 20. And I'm hoping my goal is to get 26 in because I want to finish the Nez Perce Trail twice.
Yes,
so I want to complete 13 years. And I'm doing it on actually a half brother to Dollar.
That's right.
Related to the mare I rode for the first 1,300 miles.
And isn't Dollar related to Secretariat? Or is that a different?
No, that's a different horse. I had a different horse. I had a great granddaughter Secretariat. That's another story.
That's a whole other, that's a whole other story. I just remembered, well, somebody just posted a photo of Secretariat and I went, well, Christy knows. Christy,
Yeah.
But
I was involved with that.
I love that you do this and I love that you keep the history alive of the past, present, and
I keep inviting people. So what we're trying to do is the ride used to have, let's say, an average of 250 riders. We're down to about 80 riders right now. COVID hit us all pretty hard. The economy is hitting us rather hard. And so, if you know about this ride, you can, and that my book will help you with this, plan ahead of time, budget for it, have a plan. People, you're welcome to contact me through email. You can find my phone number, I'm sure, on my website. I even have a Facebook page. It's under my name of Christy Wood, and I will post a few pictures from there of the Chief Joseph Trail Ride, from time to time. But, you can contact me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions about this and try to give you an easy way that you can start in to getting yourself ready for this ride. Possibly 2 people come and share one horse. So one person rides one day, the next day the person drives. So you can still be a part of it. Don't have to worry about riding for 5 days if you physically don't think you can. But just have the horse ready. Obviously, the horse is going to get ridden every day. But there are some ways to really, truly experience this. And so we're trying to build the ride back up again. So let me just say this, if we still have enough time here, is that we have opened the ride up to 30 non-Appaloosa horses. Before it is strictly Appaloosa only, because that's how we honor this trail and the history of the trail and the horse. But we're opening it up so people can come and experience it. And it worked out beautifully this year. We had a group that came of 18 riders from another state that had 5 Appaloosas in their family, but the rest of the family members, for one reason or another, couldn't find an Appaloosa or didn't have the right horse for a youth to ride or whatever. And they came with, whatever the math is, another 8 horses that were non-Appaloosas. So we're going to do that for the next 3 years or so, is to allow people to come with a non-Appaloosa with other family members that have Appies, or you can just still come on the ride and just enjoy this and experience it for a couple of years.
I think that's smart because, like you say, the way the finances are, somebody can't just run out and buy a Appaloosa sometime. It's like suddenly and be ready for it. Right. I think it's more important that you have safety on it, and yes, have your main Appaloosa crew, right? You want that, but to allow it for people to, I think if they're used to a horse and the horse is used to them, and they're going to go on a trail ride like this, that's safety wise, it's important.
Well, the horse has to be at least 4 years of age or older before it can come on the ride. And the riders have to be at least 12. So, that's just just something to know. And seriously, getting ready. This is something you're not going to decide to do at the last minute. And you need to get your horse prepared, and you need to have a plan. You truly have to plan for this. But it is totally worth it. Get your vacation time in, and just know that you're going to do this, and it's going to be a wonderful experience. Actually, a couple last year ended up buying my book and loved reading about the book, that they decided to drive all the way out from Wisconsin without their horses and come experience the ride and go from camp to camp to see how people handle their horses, what they're doing,
smart.
What works. It was very smart. And they came back this year, of course, and rode.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love stories like that. Yeah. I love the fact that this is horse and rider in the wilderness. Let's be smart,
Yes.
Be smart, it's calculated risk, right?
Right.
And the adrenaline's got to be high, but everyone, again, we're here every second Saturday with Christy. And next month we're going to the G. Are you the big G? The G. I don't know. The OG, the G, the goat. Are you the goat? No, we're talking about G, gear and grooming next month. We're going to be talking English and Western tack. We're going to be talking about the gear and tack you want for whether it's you're going to a show or you're just going for a happy ride. We're going to talk about cleaning your tack. That's very important. How to clean it, take care of it. Leather, we don't really care about the other stuff, right? Like nylon, we don't care. And we're going to talk about bits, spurs, and pads. So it's just like your car. You want to take care of those brake pads. I'm just saying, sometimes you need a new battery too. Just saying, just recently had to do all that stuff. So I'm just saying, tune in for next month. And if you have not caught the other episodes, check them out. Wherever you're listening, there's a playlist of them all. And again, I'm going to have that link for Appaloosa in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, you can check it out and hear more about the Appaloosa horse and Chief Joseph. I will also have the link for Christy's website so you can get her book. Also on Amazon, it's there. But it's really cool for authors to buy directly if you can. But I know y'all who love Amazon want to go do it on Amazon. So I'll have that there too. And also the link to what we've done over the Chief Joseph Trail over the years. We'll have that in there too. So thank you all for listening. As always, we'll be back next month. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And let me hear from you. I really would love to have your input and suggestions. And let's dialogue some more.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's ABCs of Horses featuring Christy Wood. You can keep up with Christy and learn more about her services and her books by going to her website, wdnhorse.com. Keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.